All right. Welcome, everybody, to the annual meeting of the Committee on Student Communication. Thank you for coming. This is a very robust attendance, particularly in light of current circumstances, and this does not even account for those that are watching online, so I'm very excited about that. Quick introduction, I'm Bryce McNeil. I am the Associate Director for Student Life in the Student Media Unit, I believe is what I'm supposed to say, in terms of the Student Life Division. And I have been advising student media since the fall of 2008. I am one of 13 members of the Committee on Student Communication. This constitutes the first meeting of that committee of the year. It is the public meeting of the committee. Now, I should point out that all meetings of the CSC are in fact open door meetings, but they are not all publicized. This is our one meeting that we publicize for students that have questions about how to get involved in student media. And I do want to take the time to welcome those of you that are joining in online. So before we get started with, sorry, go ahead. Oh, they can't hear me. Well, that's not good. My microphone is on.
No, I can hear you. I can hear you.
I can hear you as well.
I can hear you as well.
Okay, you can hear me now? Tell Casey that we need to get the audio working on YouTube. Audio not working on YouTube. While he endeavors to fix that, let me explain members of the committee are. There are 13 members of the committee. I think only a handful are present here in person. I am the chair of the committee as I guess we call it the head of student media. That's not really the formal title of it, but I have been advising student media since 2008. I advise 5 groups, and you'll hear about them as well. And I'll let any members of the committee who are physically present introduce themselves, although I think it's only 3. Start with Ash. Yeah, unmute your phone.
Please do. I am unmuted. Okay. Keep my speaker muted, which is kind of annoying. I'll just turn mine down all the way. Okay. Hi, I'm Ash. I'm the editor of New South, the graduate journal here at Georgia State. So I imagine probably none of y'all know what that is, so that's okay. But hi, I'm Ash.
And at this point, I'm going to turn my speaker on and let any online members introduce themselves. Speak as loudly as you possibly can.
Hey, my name is William Bridges. I'm the general manager of Neo Network, which is the news sort of CNN-like broadcast news and entertainment network here at Georgia State.
And now, for those who didn't hear, that's William Bridges. He is the Neon general manager. I figured as much. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. This is Jody Brooks. I'm a faculty member in the Department of English. I'm the faculty at large member on the CSC.
Jody Brooks is a faculty member of the English department, and she is one of our 2 faculty at large members. I will point out at this time that we do have a second faculty at large member who has just been appointed to that position as of this morning, which is Douglas Barthlow, who works in the communication department and is also a good person to know for those of you that are new students here that want to know more about how internships on campus work. Unfortunately, because of the short notice of that appointment and a faculty meeting that he has, he's unable to be here right now, but I would introduce him in terms of his absence. I will move it on over to Matthew.
My name is Matthew Salazar, and I am the editor-in-chief at The Signal.
Matthew Salazar, who is the editor-in-chief of The Signal, our student newspaper. have I left anybody out? Paula, are you there?
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Paula Valero and I'm the editor-in-chief for Underground Journal, that is Georgia State's art and literature journal.
Paula Valero, who is the undergraduate editor-in-chief for the Underground Literary Journal. All right, again, did I leave anybody out? I don't think I did. I will add that there are two positions listed for at-large students for the committee, an undergraduate student and a graduate student. One of those two students is to be a student that is not a member of any of the groups. Mary Papetti, who is a member of Album 88, is an undergraduate who has expressed interest in position on the board. I have not formalized that as of yet. There still stands a vacancy for graduate students, unless there's a really young graduate student looking me in the eye right now. I'm going to assume that there's no one here that might be interested in filling that vacancy, but I would love to pass that on. So thanks everybody for introducing yourselves. I also want to mention that on the call is Zawana Price, who is the advisor at Perimeter College, which is the Clarkston campus is where the student media for Perimeter College Activities for Student Media is headquartered. She is not a sitting member of the committee, but she does attend meetings periodically as a guest. One of the things that we will talk about in the course of this meeting is some changes that may require us to change the bylaws. That's probably not anything that most of you sitting in this room are incredibly thrilled or interested to hear, but it is something that we will need to discuss. So we will start the meeting by talking a little bit about some of the changes that have been going on campus. Most of you that are sitting here as guests are here because you probably have an interest in getting involved in one of the groups and don't necessarily know a lot about the mechanics of it. We have 5 media groups, Album 88, which is our radio station, Neo Network, our video group, 2 literary journals, New South and Underground, and The Signal, our student newspaper. The committee acts as sort of a mechanism to appoint the media heads each year that you see. So outgoing leaders play a role in helping to pick the next team, as well as those that otherwise sit on the committee. And in addition to that, in years past, it also acted as something of a media fee council. So student activity fee committees decide what money each groups on campus receive. Lump sum would be dedicated to the Media Fee Council, who would then decide amongst themselves how that would be divvied up amongst the media groups. That is something that is going to change. So at that point, I'm going to turn things over to Boyd Beckwith to talk a little bit about some of the changes on campus and how that might affect how both student media operates and how this committee operates. For those of you that can't hear, Boyd is trying to get in, so you haven't missed anything. Now, basically in years past, the committee would get the notification in terms of what its budget was going to be sometime in December, in terms of the collective lump sum. And then amongst ourselves, we would decide in January and February, okay, New South gets this, South maybe gets that, and so on and so forth. And then we would make that presentation to the activity fee committee in April in terms of that divvying and responsibility. Now, that is not the only change. I want to call attention, although she did not introduce herself, to Gail Sutton. And I wanted her to maybe talk a little bit about some of the changes in the reporting structure, because that's likely possibly going to affect future composition of the committee. Boyd has sat on the committee and has previously even directed the committee as the senior director of the Student Center, and previously acting as my direct supervisor. In light of department changes and other title changes, that's a little bit different. So I'll let Gail kind of opine a little bit on that.
Hello. So I'm Gail Sutton. I'm Director of Student Life, and I report to Boyd as the Senior Director of Student Center and Student Life. But underneath my group, which we're calling the Student Life team, is now Student Media, Student Organizations, Fraternity and Sorority Life, Spotlight Programs Board, and some other initiatives like the Pounds for Rewards program and Panther Welcome. And I still work on digital assessment and some of those functions like that. But it is a bigger group, a greater team in terms of the program board. I also advise Student Government Association, so we've got a great circle of collaborators in terms of putting us in one group and working together on that. So I'm excited to have Student Media as a new entry into my bailiwick of what I work with, and so I'm looking forward to some of the cohesion that I hope will come from that relationship. Oh, yes. We've also made some physical relocations within the last week or so in terms of where we're located. So we have the added benefit of now the student media support is located on the same floor as the student media. So Bryce's office and Waukesha and Casey now have an office within the suite that is 256, which is where I am also located, just down the other hallway in terms of where you would find us. And then Student Organizations is right across the hall, and soon to be opened is a our registered student organization collaboration space. SGA is moving their offices downstairs, also in the second floor. This is all by way of the benefit of University Career Services relocating to 25 Park Place in great new space. So if you need to get headshots or want to talk about career counseling, they have some really nice new digs over there. But that has freed up the opportunity for us to really inhabit the second floor with many facets of student life. So again, bringing lots of good things together so that we can sort of cross-pollinate with each other. But that's another good physical change that is still in process. But if you're looking for Bryce and Waukesha and Casey, they're now located just down the hallway, right around the corner from where the student media offices are located. So, anything else? Any other questions on that? Good. Okay.
I will add that as for the board members present either on this call or in this meeting in person, is that our bylaws will be reviewed in the next couple of meetings, and we should consider whether we want to keep the current composition in terms of numbers. Do we want a board of 13? In the past, it's been more. In the past, it's been less. Do we want to keep that medium? Is it a happy medium? And in that regard, is it a simple case of swapping Gail for Boyd? Do we typically want to have the committee have students that outnumber the professional staff, which is something that we generally do aspire to do. And I will also add that Jeannie Barrett is another member who's not able to join us. She is an ex officio member who is basically the voice of legal reason. She works as a legal counsel here at Georgia State University and sits on the board to kind of provide advice in terms of legal manner when we have a question in terms of whether or not a student is allowed to publish something or not and things of that nature. She's generally a good voice for counsel in that regard. So we definitely will want to kind of review that, plus change some language in the bylaws that are outdated to previous days when we operated under the umbrella of student affairs, which is no longer the way of the land. So that's just a bit of a preview for the board members in terms of things that we will be talking about in upcoming meetings. That being said, I'm sure the reason most of you are here is to hear about what the student organizations are doing. So I'll start with Ash, since Ash is here and can physically speak to that. So Ash, again, as they introduced themselves, the editor-in-chief of New South. Tell us a little bit about what New South is, how people can get involved, and what you've been up to the past few months.
Okay. So New South is a graduate journal here at university. It's the sister journal to Underground, which is the undergraduate journal. So if y'all are interested in writing and literature, you're probably more interested in Underground. But can you show them a copy of the issue that I brought you? Basically, we just produce these twice a year. They're filled with poetry, fiction, and nonfiction, and some art from submitters from around the world. Whoever submits to us and we like it, we accept it and we publish it. We do those twice a year. Our most recent issue was 13.2, which came out. I'll admit COVID has kind of delayed our schedule a little bit. We usually would have had an issue. I think 13.2 came out last fall, and 14.1 should have come out last spring, but it's still not out yet. But it's almost done. It's almost ready. Next issue's coming. And then we have the issue after that, already pretty much done, actually, Bryce, because we already accepted all the pieces and stuff. So yeah, other than that, like, we haven't really been doing much, obviously, because of COVID. So basically just the issues and stuff like that is what we've been working on. So yeah.
And can you discuss a bit, because I know this is something else that's been put on ice in the COVID time, but I know that in the past you did First Friday readings, but that was sort of a collaboration with another department. Do you know if they're still interested in doing it? Have your staff discussed possibly doing it? Is that kind of something that a payment stayed in, or?
It's definitely, it's weirdly frozen right now, I think, because I think we had this idea that, like, oh, when we go back in the fall, everybody will be vaccinated and everybody will be fine, and like we won't have to worry about, you know, COVID, and we'll be able to do in-person readings. But clearly that's not the case. So we're still at the drawing board for resuming readings, but we're working on it. We're hoping to have something.
In the past, New South has done First Friday readings, which, you know, as named First Friday, they would bring in both outside authors and authors on campus, and usually a mix as well of, you know, a typical New South First Friday reading might be one outside reader, one person that is a graduate student in the English department, and then maybe one additional graduate student or an additional undergraduate student, and that would kind of round it out. And then they would have an end of the year reading where the entire staff would do selections of their work. And it's been in a variety of locations, usually local coffee houses, Kavarna, in the Kirkwood area. They've been done at, what was the name of that place? Javavino. There was a place in Decatur that unfortunately I think burned down. Yeah. That used to do that. Java Monkey. What location or form that might take, we will see as the year moves along. So that seems like, oh, and actually one other thing I will also add before I turn it over to Paula, it's also worth mentioning that New South does do a writing contest every year. That is a cash prize writing contest, national writing contest. I should say actually international writing contest. Yeah. We've had winners from outside the United States before. That is funded solely from revenue. It is a cash entry contest. That is a side bit of revenue that the New South budget accounts for to fund their contest, and just recently named their winners of the recent. I don't know if you want to go ahead and name that now, although there might be names that nobody in the room will know. But for the purposes of the internet, if you want to name the winners of the most recent contest, I don't even have that. Fair enough. Fair enough. Then we'll put a bit on that. I'm sure they won't mind being snubbed in this form. I'll turn things over to Paula to talk about Underground. And Paula, I'll be happy to repeat anything that the audience cannot hear. Obviously, we don't have the amplification we would have liked here, but go ahead.
Okay. Underground is like I said, the art and literature journal for GSU for undergraduates. We take only student work, and we take things like art, prose, poetry, photography. But then this semester, we're actually doing something new and adding film and music as well, which is something that we're really excited about.
Can you repeat that last part, Paula?
That this semester we're receiving film and music submissions as well, which is something new for us and something that we're very excited about. So we want to be able to implement all types of art from Georgia State into the magazine.
So for those that
Nope.
has opened up its newest submission window. They did a reading this past Friday. Did anybody in the room attend that reading by chance? Anyone? Oh, wow. That's actually good. The fact that that reading had like 20, 21, 22 students, and the fact that we got 22 students for that, and then we have a whole new group of students here, that's a good sign. That reading was this past Friday, a week ago at Troy Moore Library. Great room if you haven't checked it out. It's on the 23rd floor of the 25 Park Place South. Which is the extremely tall building in the center of town, formerly known as the SunTrust Building. And at that reading, not only did they have students read excerpts of work from the last published edition, they also opened up the call for the next edition. So as Paula has mentioned here, not only is that open for art and literature submissions, but also film and audio submissions. This will be an attempted multimedia edition. This is something that Underground has done in its past. I do want to call to attention, only because it's not anything that got to be announced to any great public in person. Underground had the great privilege of being the first publication in Georgia State University history to win a Pacemaker Award. For those of you that don't know what the Pacemaker is, that is an award that's handed out by the Associated Collegiate Press, that are sort of considered almost like the Pulitzers of college media. And they've handed out awards to newspapers for years, but have also handed out awards to magazines, video, literary journals as well. Last year, we were actually finalists in 3 categories for the Pacemakers, which was an unprecedented accomplishment for student media, and we're very proud of it, as the Signal, Neon, and Underground were all finalists. And the issue that won, In Transit, was edited by Casey Tiegman, the editor-in-chief, from the fall of 2019. So we've got our legacy to live up to now. So I'm curious, show of hands, for those of you in the room, are there any people here that are writers of any kind, short stories? Okay, fabulous. Fabulous, a good deal of you. I will also say that Underground traditionally has also done writing workshops, roundtables. Last year during the more virtual environment, they did a virtual seminar that was kind of semi-writing workshop, meditative, to kind of get students in the right frame of mind in pandemic, but also kind of workshop some of the things they're writing. So Paula, I don't know if you want to comment a little bit on how, if the Underground staff has discussed any workshops that they would like to do in the coming year. I know that's something that does help some students refine things before they want to submit it.
Yeah, we have talked about having some type of writing workshop or even like photography workshop, just in regards to just different ways of photography and how to work the camera and stuff. But we don't have anything that's concrete yet, but we'd love to have something within the next couple of months.
Okay, I think a microphone is going to be delivered to me shortly here. And I will repeat what Paula said, which is that there's no definitive date set for those workshops yet. But for those of you that are thinking about submitting your work, but you're not necessarily confident in it, I would go to undergroundjournal.org. I would look up Underground on pin.gsu.edu, and request membership just to keep track of what they're doing. Those writing workshops are an incredibly helpful device in terms of being able to refine any writing, so that you can feel confident in what you're submitting. And I'll talk a little bit about Album 88, since it looks like a microphone is going to be heading my way at some point. No? Oh gosh. Okay. All right. I'll filibuster since I'm loud and everyone can hear me. And I don't believe Joseph was able to join the call. I'll speak for Album 88 before I turn it over to Neon and the Signal. So Album 88 is the college radio station here. Unless Joseph is in the audience, I can't see. The lights are blinding me. Oh my God, he's here. Okay, never mind. No wonder he's not on the call. Like, you're literally right next to the light. All I see is a white mask. Joseph, introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Album 88. Yeah, come to the front, please. What is Album 88 and what has it been up to the past few months?
Yes, Album 88, it is the college radio station of Georgia State, and what we've been mainly doing has been focusing on like rebuilding our numbers, which we have found a great number of people who have found like an interest in joining the radio station.
How many people in the room have an interest in being part of the radio station?
Wow.
You guys are always the most popular. For those that don't know, when I was a graduate student here, I was the general manager of the radio station, so I understand it all too well.
But yeah,
Any particular vacancies or anything that you want to call attention to?
vacancies. Something that we want to call attention to is for people who are interested in podcasting. We've been really trying to look for people who are interested in starting their own podcast. So if you have any sort of interest in podcasting, do talk to me.
And
Love
don't
and-
forget the application window.
Yes, and for those of you interested in applying, the application window opens on the 1st of October to the 10th.
And I will add, is there anything you want to add before I sit down?
No, not that I can think of.
Thank you, Joseph. The other thing I will add to that is that in the past, when it comes to Album 88 application windows pre-COVID, we typically waited until there was a GSU GPA for you to get started. That has been waived in terms of getting started with training. So you do still need to have a GSU GPA to be on the air, but you do not need a GSU GPA to apply and be considered for the training period. So I'm assuming that most of you in this room, quick show of hands, how many of you are in your first semester? I figured as much. And if you're in your first semester, you will need to get that GPA of 2.0 or higher established before you can go on the air, but you can apply and get started training, which we're hoping will be a good boon for getting people in the door and processed quicker. Obviously, a great chance to get on the air. And actually, most DJs start out on Graveyard, which means you actually start out with the terrestrial airtime. For those of you that have never listened to Album 88, we are on the air from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. on 88.5 FM, and we're on the air online and on HD2 24/7 if you go to 88.5 HD2 or go online to wrs.org. You can listen to the audio stream there. We are in the process of redesigning the website. It's a bit of a work in progress, and Joseph has been talking with Micaiah Costin, our webmaster, in terms of ideas for that as well. But the information in terms of the application links are up to date. So anything that you would want to do there is completely encouraged. I hoped that would get us through to the period without a microphone, but alas, Nick is on his way. So I'll just repeat everything that Matt says. Matt, talk a little bit about the signal, and I will translate for the in-person audience. Matt, you're muted. Matt, can you hear us? You're muted, Matt. I don't know if Matt is having problems. Will, are you there? Can you hear me, Will?
Hey, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, you can go ahead. Talk a little bit about Neo Network.
Neo Network. So we, as you may know or not know, so I guess I'll just go ahead and cover it. We have two basic sides of Neo Network. We have our more popular PRN, Panther Report News, that does weekly videos, sometimes more than weekly videos, going over news that pertains to Georgia State, the city of Atlanta, the state of Georgia, and even the country. But we try to focus on content that is relevant to the student body. So we funnel all of our news coverage through that lens. And then we have another side, which is called Neon House, or I guess the name might change soon. But anyway, we've been calling it Neon House. And basically that side is like a film production and entertainment production house, I guess, production house. What they do there is the team of writer directors produce either episodic content or short film content throughout the course of the school year, incorporating different talents from across the university as far as storyboarding and continuity editing and gaffing and lighting, and gives students the opportunity to really explore their curiosities as they pertain to entertainment production. Big changes to look out for this year are that as Bryce was talking about earlier with the pacemaker, we're planning rather to put a lot of work into the website as far as filling it up with all of our nice, fun content, as well as producing some big stuff this year. We're always looking for filmmakers to produce content, and we've been looking at a lot of reels from a lot of students across the university. And I don't know what it is about COVID and finally being able to actually get out and use resources to create content, but people have become a lot more creative and spent their time well during the pandemic. Wow, I lost the word. Self-isolation. Vacancies in positions. So we have 3 vacancies in positions. 1 is for a post-production lead position, and 2 are for our writer-director positions. We have a head writer-director that sees over the entire production for the year, and who also produces content as well, will be responsible for one of the productions that we produced this year. And then 2 positions that would also be responsible for producing content, but to report directly to the head staff writer-director. Big changes for that side of the network. We're trying to incorporate a business model or just an operational model that's similar to Netflix. So we'd like to produce our own original content, just like the mandate provides every year. We create content from those producers that I spoke about just now, but also there are a lot of students who, like I just said, over COVID have been creating lots of original content in and of themselves. And we would like to be able to provide a platform to share their content with the rest of the student body. So again, think Netflix. They have their originals, which, as a side note, Netflix has been really putting out some bangers recently, and also house other people's content.
Thank you, Will. I'm just going to add, you probably heard most of that, but some of it not so much, just to reiterate. So Neon, which is down the hall, video group with 2 sides, news side and a creative side. We have a lot of vacancies on the creative side. As Will has elucidated, we actually even have some stipended positions, which would not be something that most of you would be immediately eligible for. You would need to have your GPA first, but just something to keep in mind that we do have 2 creative vacancies and a post-production lead vacancy. The creative side in the past has done a lot of fun things. I was particularly fond of the year where we had 16 straight episodes of content over 16 weeks, 4 shows broken up into 4 parts. That's the kind of thing we would like to aspire to do. But as Will has also said, the website should also function as kind of like a distribution mechanism or model for even content that already exists. So if there's something that you've already worked on and you're just looking for a platform for it to be seen, then we would love to hear from you. And neon.generalmanager@gmail.com is Will's email, and he can give you a little bit more details about that. Some of you were probably part of the NSO tours this summer and saw the studio. If not, down the hall, that is part of the Neon space. They do have a live switch room. It's a great chance to learn about live switching technology if you want to do any kind of in-studio things as part of your creative projects as well. But a lot of times the creative teams will assemble teams to go on site to do kind of more vibrant, lifelike kind of pieces for creative work, whether it's a drama or comedy or anything like that. We can elaborate a little bit more if there are any questions during the Q&A period about that, but I see that Matt has hopefully gotten his problems worked out. So Matt, if you want to talk a little bit about The Signal.
Thank you, Bryce. So The Signal is an independent, award-winning news outlet at Georgia State University. During the fall and spring semesters, we release a weekly print product. Our outlet consists of 4 editorial departments. There's news, opinions, arts and living, and sports. News consists of campus and student body-oriented writing. Opinions covers touchy subjects that some are hesitant to speak about, but we cover anyways. We have arts and living. Arts and living covers subjects such as fashion, album reviews, and student profiles. Sports covers all of the sports around Atlanta, whether it be GSU teams, the Atlanta Hawks, Atlanta United, and the Atlanta Falcons. The Signal also does offer creative departments such as photography, videography, graphic design, illustration, and even a podcast. A little update on The Signal. We are currently working on our 4th issue this semester. We are also in talks with Center Park Stadium about getting ads in our paper. Since the student involvement fair, The Signal has had a major influx of applicants on PIN, and we've already hired, I would say, close to a dozen students since the student involvement fair. Let's see, still working on getting some positions filled. These are paid contributors. The news editor position is currently vacant, and the distributor position is also vacant as well. I think that's pretty much it about the signal and a little bit on the update.
All right, this is the part where we open things up for Q&A, but I did want to add one other portion of information before we do that. You've probably heard a few of the people make reference to different paid positions that are vacant. And while it's true that most of you may not be currently eligible for that unless you have a 2.0 GPA already established, Perimeter College GPAs do count, by the way, in that regard. So if any of you are transfers from Perimeter College, that means you've already established a Georgia State GPA. But all of the positions come open for the fall, summer, fall, spring of the following year, typically around February, March. So please do keep your eyes open for that. The CSC has the responsibility of selecting the media heads. The media heads in turn interview and select their teams. That is something that, as kind of the young, vibrant new generation of college students here, we would hope that many of the people in this room go on to do. So with that, I will open the floor for questions. And for those of you that are asking questions online, I will defer to the people in person first, but I am going to follow the streams to see if there's any questions on YouTube as well. So if you have a question, just raise your hand and just stand up and ask it. Yes. Thank you. And I will also add that the reason that a lot of people do get involved with Almedia is they usually kind of have an idea for some sort of a specialty show that they eventually want to go on to do. And it sort of does work a little bit like a ladder. So you start out on Graveyard. If you're good on Graveyard and you've demonstrated the proper competency on the board, you move up to a regular rotation shift. And, you demonstrate a creative idea that we think is great for a show, then you can pitch that. And if the program director likes that, you can have that as well. And that generally happens in one of two ways. Either people go on to take over a show, well, actually three ways. They either go on to take over they want to take over a show that used to exist, but doesn't anymore. So it's like they want to bring it back. So if you're like, oh, we used to have this show called, Built for Speed. It was rockabilly music and we don't have it anymore. I want to bring it back. Or a show that does exist, but you want to be a co-host of it. Or you want to take over when that host graduates, or something that's entirely new. We've never had a polka show on the station. I want to be the first, that kind of thing. So those opportunities all exist as far as that is concerned. Very good question. Thank you. Any other questions in the room? Yes. I'll hand the microphone over to Joseph in a second, but just for those of you that are watching on YouTube, the question was, what are the different positions that you can have at Almedia? Before I hand it over to Joseph, I will say that obviously that we have a robust volunteer staff that's simply DJ, and you don't necessarily have to feel like you need to be a member of management. Joseph, if you want to talk a little bit about the members of management and what they do. Obviously, as general manager, you're in charge of supervising the team, so you can tell everybody a little bit about your team and what they do.
The program director, assistant program directors, we're only in charge of things like scheduling and the training people. And then you have our promotion staff. Then we have our promotion staff, our assistant promotions and assistant promotion director, and with the promotions director is in charge of making contact with venues, especially for things like ticket giveaways, like concert individuals, and the assistant promotions director who feels more and with like social. There's social media. And then there are our music directors in which they used to have them stratified by genre, but now we're trying a bit of a different approach in which you're going to the main music director and then this is the three assistant music directors whose main job is their main jobs are basically to find new music that we find fitting for what fits the album vibe, primarily with the main goal of promoting like smaller underground artists. And then we have
Promotion? You say promotion?
yes. And then we have the production director, which is the production director is mainly in charge of making sure things like our automated systems working and things like data is like up and functioning, which is it's the same. That covers and then we also have the podcast director and always Gail I believe that covers
I was going to say, I'll take that. No worries. 88 sessions, which is done mostly here. That is where the 88 sessions coordinator works with a team of students to film bands to film performances here that are then rebroadcast both on the internet, 88sessions.org. Some of you probably got the stickers during your tour this summer, and those broadcasts, those performances are also broadcast on the radio as well. We are probably going to dip our toes. This is something that Joseph and I and the staff will have to talk about. Dip our toes into doing live to air broadcasts. We have worked with our engineer to establish some audio delay technology and things of that nature to kind of keep us safe on the FCC side of things. But we haven't tested it yet, so that's just toe dipping. But if you have an interest in live music and in the Atlanta music community, that is something that may interest you. You may already have musical artists in mind that that would be perfect to be on Album 88's 88 sessions. If so, please tell Joseph so he can tell Henry Hyman, our sessions coordinator, about it and see if we can line them up for that. We've had open mic nights before and have had GSU students perform as well, so that's an opportunity that exists there as well. I know there was a question over here, so go ahead. I'm going to refer that question to two people. For those of you watching online, the question was, are there rules or formatting in terms of if you want to pitch a podcast? That's a question that's actually for both Joseph and for Matt, because I know that the Signal has also experienced podcasting. And actually, I should point out, has won some awards for their podcasting. They won an Apple Award from the College Media Association. And we even got a bronze honor for the Telly Awards, which isn't even a student media award. It's an international media award. So that was really exciting for the Signal Sound. So Matt, we'll let you go first, and then I'll let Joseph take that question.
Yes, so we actually are currently, I guess that's one other vacant position. Completely forgot about the podcast position. I'm not even gonna lie to you. But yeah, a little bit about the podcast. It's just kind of a rundown. It literally is a minute, just like Bryce is saying, it's called The Signal in a Minute. So we pretty much just discuss a few of the articles that we touch on every single week. We do post all of the podcasts to, I believe, SoundCloud. We don't have any other platforms currently, but yeah, that's pretty much a little bit about the podcast position. It is a vacant position as well.
And Joseph, is there anything you wanted to add about that?
Yeah, but the rules are a lot more loose than it is a lot more freedom. Talk about you can talk about things like staying politics and things of that nature.
That's actually an excellent point. I do want to thank you for that, Joseph. The only thing I would say, and I don't know if this was kind of the nature of the question as you were asking it, but I would say that the only thing we would check if you were doing a podcast for Alvin 88 is that we had like appropriate disclaimers. It's very important for everybody in the room to know that when it comes to WRAS-FM, which is the radio signal that Georgia State University owns, that is a Georgia State University entity, and Georgia State University is liable for anything that happens on it, whether it comes from a student or Georgia Public Broadcasting or otherwise, as opposed to the signal, which is an independent outlet and is completely responsible for the content that it puts out. So that doesn't necessarily mean, though, that you would be handcuffed in any way in terms of what to talk about. It's just we would want to make sure we were doing the appropriate disclaimers as necessary. Yes.
Yeah, where do we like apply for these things?
Everything lives on PIN. So I would say that if you have an interest in any of the media groups, immediately request membership. But I think it's also a good idea just to contact the leaders directly. Because then that way they can remember who you are. So in the case of the, what's your email again, Ash? newsouthoditors@gmail.com. album88gm@gmail.com. For Joseph, for Neo Network, it's neon.generalmanager@gmail.com. For Underground, it's underground.journal@gmail.com. And Signal Editor@gmail.com. I think if you contact them directly, that way they can remember who you are. And I think I may have mentioned this on some of the tours this summer. Don't be too discouraged if you don't immediately hear right away after applying. But that email really helps in terms of keeping you're like, hey, I applied for this. I went on PIN. I saw there was this application for Album 88. I just want to make sure you got it. If all else fails, email me. I'm bmcneil1@gsu.edu. I also check student media at gsu.edu, which is a little easier to remember. And just say, hey, I sent this application. I just want to make sure you got it because I haven't heard back yet. I want to make sure that nothing is wrong. And you got to follow up to that.
Yeah, can you say that?
Sure. neon.generalmanager@gmail.com. Yeah, no problem. Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now I'm not going to lie, and I don't know if anybody in the room or on the chat wants to speak to this, but there's definitely times of the year where they're busier than others, but they're always doing something. Absolutely. Okay. I haven't had a chance to check the YouTube chat since the first 5 minutes. There were no questions in the first 5 minutes, so I'm going to double check here. I see that Adam Duffy has asked what is the best way to apply for the podcast position. So again, I'll have Matt go first, and then I'll have Joseph go second. So if somebody is specifically interested in applying for the podcast, a podcast position, what should they do?
Yes, so I actually see that Adam has just requested to join the Signal. So he's already making moves, which is good. But yeah, the best way to apply for any of the positions that we have, and that does include the podcast position, it would all be through Panther Involvement Network, or just like even Bryce said, sometimes we won't immediately, look at PIN. So another best way to contact us would definitely be our Gmails that Bryce had just talked about as well.
The Signal also has an email newsletter that would be very useful for you to subscribe to if you have not already, just to keep updated with what they're doing. And Matt, do you want to talk a little bit about how they can get in on that?
Can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry, Bryce.
No worries. I was just saying that you also have the weekly newsletter. How can they subscribe to it?
Sheesh. So I guess we could. What you would do is you would send us your Gmail or your student email, and then we would put you down, and you will receive a weekly newsletter from the Signal. We don't cover all of our articles within the weekly newsletter. We only touch on 4 stories, 1 from each section.
Thank you. And Joseph, did you want to talk a little bit about how to directly get involved in podcasting? So that's 88 podcast director at relocation@gmail.com if you're interested there. That's the only question I see so far in the YouTube chat. I'll check again in a second. Any other questions in the room? Yes. You know, I've seen so many people countlessly request it, but I actually have no idea how to do it myself. Does anybody want to jump? Gail is red. Gail's itching. Go ahead, Gail. Sure. For students looking to join, when you sign in on PIN, look for the group that you're interested in joining. So Album 88, The Signal, etc. And then once you find that page, there should be a blue button on the upper right-hand side. It's the upper right-hand side, yes. That indicates that you would like to join the group, and that message goes to the administrator of that account. Sure.
Okay, so at the ready, if you take the pin pass, your red pass, your wallet, or store it in your phone or take a screenshot, have that pin up so that the exit is you off on the list. And or you can log into pin.dsc.eu, open your profile, which is either your picture or your initials in the upper right corner. And when you click on that drop-down list, the first item on the list is your event. So two ways to pull it up. You can save it, or you can pull it up from logging into it. So whenever the meeting is finished, I'm not going to rush the end or anything, but when you're exiting, just talk to either Boyd or myself.
And as that message was more specifically for the people in the room and not online, I won't repeat all of it, but I will say that if you are watching this online, I would love for you to contact me directly to indicate that you came and watched it online. Just email me at bmcneil1@gsu.edu, bmcneil1@gsu.edu. I'm going to dip into the YouTube chat again to make sure there's no questions there. Any other questions in the room? And it's just been brought to my attention. I was muted that whole time. I apologize. And there were two questions that were very similar, and they're both for Will, which regard basically how do you get films produced for Neon. So I think that basically to boil those questions down simply, if someone already has a film, how do they go about submitting it? If someone wants to apply for these vacant positions, how do they go about doing it? And if someone just wants to pitch an idea, how do they go about doing it? I will take the second one, which is to say those vacant positions have not been posted yet, but when they will be posted, it will be on that PIN portal. And so I would say you should bookmark the student media portal on PIN. Look up student media on PIN, and a news event will be created for that that indicates those positions are open for applying. I will let Will handle the rest on that.
Okay, so what were the other questions besides how to apply?
If someone has an idea for a film, how do they go about getting involved in the team and pitching? And if they already have an idea, or if they already have an executed film, how do they go about submitting it for display?
Okay, so if you're planning on producing something from within as like a Neon House original, traditionally the people who produce that kind of content are coming from, or the people who are producing that kind of content are the stipended staff members, so the head staff writer director and then the two other writer directors. Not to say that a volunteer couldn't propose an idea that one of them thinks is a really good idea and then they take it and run with it. Usually just they are the decision makers on that front. However, if you wanted to, as a volunteer, produce something just so that you can get the experience to create, I think under the supervision of one of the staff or stipended positions, using resources for Neon, I don't think that would be a bad idea. The only thing, however, that I need to mention, because this question has been brought up before, is that if you're utilizing resources that are Neo Network's resources, then that would be ours, essentially. It'd be yours and you could use it on a portfolio and things like that. You wouldn't be signing off your rights or license to it or anything like that. It's just that we would have rights to continue to broadcast it or publish it or show it on our website, that kind of thing. But really, to answer the question, if it's really just coming down to how do I do it, you simply just inquire. We're always looking for opportunities to create content, and that's simply just asking. As for using us as a platform to produce already pre-made work that you have, just the same. Just say, hey, listen, I have this thing that I'd really like to get out to people. If you could put this on your website and maybe share it or something like that, that'd be awesome. We would absolutely love to do that. It's just about asking.
And I will add two things to that. That obviously we have I think the Neon House website design is great. It just needs some good volunteers to make it go. Once we do that, it'll be a great avenue for that distribution. So if that's you or anybody you know, contact Will directly. And I'll also add that in terms of what he's talking about in terms of rights, in terms of creative works, it is absolutely true that we reserve the right to rebroadcast anything you do for Neon House in perpetuity, but that doesn't mean that it's still not your work that you won't license for other use. One quick example I will mention is we did have a student about a decade ago, Jonas Michael, who did a series called Sophomores, which we did rebroadcast a few times and also put online. But he also individually sold copies of after he graduated. So we continued to show it, and used it for other purposes when he graduated, and that's typically how that use works, operates. Any other questions in the room? I see no other questions in the room, so I'm going to make sure for sure that there are no more questions in the chat room. I don't see the other questions in the chat room. Oh, wait, one more question in the room. Go ahead. Yes, and the question for those watching online is the application window for Out-Mediate, and where is it located in terms of becoming a new DJ? It is on PIN, but we've linked to it on WRAS.org. So if you go to WRAS.org, you're going to see a tab that says Get Involved. And if you click on that, it has the direct link. But the link does not become active until the application window opens. So if you go there now, you'll see the link, but you click on it and it'll be like, this form is not available yet, because it's not. But then on October 1st, it will become available. And as long as you're signed in as a student, you can apply. That's volunteer positions for now. Yes, we're otherwise filled up. But I would always say, for those of you that are seeking leadership positions in any organization, while it is true that the majority of the vacancies occur in the spring, periodically we do have December graduations. So it's always a very good idea to keep your eyes open on all the PIN portals around December, because or actually November, really, because November is when we look, where we say, oh wait, our podcast editor is graduating a month early or a semester early, and now we got to fill that vacancy. So add all the groups on pin.gsu.edu. And I don't know if, Gail, you want to take this time. I know it's not student media related, but I don't know if you wanted to take this time to talk a little bit about just how students can inquire about employment opportunities in general, because I know a flyer just went out about that. Or am I putting you on the spot? Okay.
in the building. So again, if you're looking for just a way to make some money and gain skills, studentcenter.usu.edu, there's a tab that says employment. It will list a little dollar sign next to the store I'm for right now, but also includes the description and a link to the form book.
And I believe most of you probably heard that online, but in case you didn't, go to studentcenter.gsu.edu and look in the employment section. You can see a number of paid opportunities that are available for students in a variety of areas across campus in terms of office assistants, tech, and so forth. So if it's, and you don't need a GPA for that. That's very important. Thank you for mentioning that. You do not need to have a GSU GPA. You just need to be currently enrolled. So that's good to know. All right. I'm going to check one more time here, but I think we may have used up the question well, pretty much right about time. Oh, wait, we have two more here and two more. Wow, okay, we're popular. I'll ask the question online first. What was the email to contact if we watched online? And it was provided by Casey. Thank you, bmcneil1@gsu.edu. And then questions in the room, one here, and I think there's one other one. Correct, yes. Will. Before Will speaks, I will say that's a 6-month position. So Will, do you want to talk a little bit about the post-production and what is expected of that position? You're muted, Will.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so the post-production lead position is essentially what it sounds like. So the production team will spend the majority of the school year producing their content, pre-production, production, budget handling, reshoots, casting, that kind of stuff, normal production schedule things. And then once you get towards the end and all of the footage has been shot and the story is concluded, usually we rely on the position of the post-production lead to handle piecing everything together, so to speak. We have several computers well equipped to handle raw footage, previewing raw footage in real time, 4K in real time. Lots of screens, lots of opportunities to show other people. I mean, the office space is actually one of my favorite things about working at Neon. It's because we just have the resources. Anyway, it is a 6-month position, obviously, because the post-production lead wouldn't necessarily be needed during production. And that's it. Now, depending on the requirements of the production team, when they've birthed their ideas and have their production plans in place, a post-production lead might be required earlier rather than later, as is traditional. But that's really just circumstantial depending on what the production team decides what they want to do, the head staff writer director and then the 2 staff writer directors.
Thank you, Will. One other question.
Yeah. One more thing about that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, about the post-production lead. The post-production lead position isn't quite one of those positions where it's you come in green and you really want to experiment and learn. There's definitely opportunities for that as a volunteer, but the post-production lead is sort of important because as a production team, they sort of rely on you to be able to sort of carry your weight a little bit more with your editing ability and just your familiarity with editing programs to really actually produce their work, because you're the final stop before things are made. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, the analogy I use is kind of the same as like a copy editor in a print publication. You're like the last stop, but everything you filmed and everything, you can give it that last look and make sure it's okay. Sorry, go ahead with your question. That's a great question. The question was, would you rather, when emailing us about things, would you rather us use our student email or our personal email? I would say for first inquiries, I don't want to speak for the other leaders, but broadly speaking, good practice is to use your student email for the first inquiry, so that we know who you are. We can kind of key you into various systems. There are going to be certain things you're going to have to do, not just with student media, but any element on campus that simply requires student email. It goes without saying. Obviously, in terms of our meeting, for example, we need to access the office to do a shift, we need to have your student information, that kind of thing. But in terms of if you eventually catch on, then each individual leader is going to want you to use whatever email you check the most, which is basically what I say when I do legal sessions about the radio station with students. I say, like, please use the email you check the most. But I will use this as a platform to tell everybody, like, it is really, really, really important that you do check your student email fairly frequently, because a lot of times, even though I know that a lot of you probably have pre-established emails that you use pretty regularly that you're taking with you from, high school life or a previous life, that type of that helps us, the professionals, archive things so much easier. And there are just certain things that are tied into those student emails that we can't tie into a Gmail or something like that. Just that's a great question. So that's just a good thing to know. No problem. I am pleasantly surprised that we actually used the full complement of our time. And normally during one of these meetings, I would say this is where we need to open up the floor to discuss other business, but I think we otherwise maxed the time out. So I do want to thank everybody for their attention. Gail and Boyd will get your info on the way out to kind of ensure the robust attendance for this. I do want to remind everyone again now that we are on the second floor. Waukesha Henley, business coordinator, myself, associate director, and Casey, technical supervisor. We're in the 256 suite. If you want to stop by and say hi, my number is 404-413-1592. My email is bmcneil1@gsu.edu. If you have any questions about anything that you've heard today, and those for all online as well. With that, I will tell all the members of the board that we are tentatively set for our next meeting on October 17th, location to be determined. And we will have a fuller complement of membership by then. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you guys for coming to the meeting.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing some emails from you guys for sure.
Thank you, everyone.